Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the Netflix TV show, The Sandman Season 1. The synopsis is as follows. When the Sandman, aka Dream, the cosmic being who controls all dreams, is captured and held prisoner for more than a century, he must journey across different worlds and timelines to fix the chaos his absence has caused. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things to make a TV show great. 1. The plot. The Sandman takes place in the DC universe, but it very much takes place in its own universe away from the DCU. But everything throughout this series is so incredibly creative and interesting. As soon as Dream is able to break out of this prison, he has to try and hunt down all of these different things that were broken in the time he was gone. And while all the things he has to do and all the people he meets are really interesting, I think that the way they told this story made the plot seem a bit convoluted. It seemed like they were jumping from one plot to another plot to another plot to another plot, to where it didn't seem like there was a consistent story that you could hold on to throughout the series, other than Dream just kind of walking around and putting the fires out that sprung up when he was gone. But when looking at the series as a whole, it didn't really make as much sense as it could have. So I really like what's going on here, but I didn't really like the way that they did it. But for all intents and purposes, plot gets a thumbs up. 2 is family friendliness. In short, no, the Sandman is not family friendly. Specifically, in episode 1, there's some female nudity that takes place in the background of a scene, and when Dream is captured, he is in the nude, although you don't see anything crucial. There's profanity, there's blood and gore, there's sexuality, both seen and alluded to. There's some very dark and disturbing things that you see on screen. People cast spells, there's demons, and the general tone of the TV show in general is very dark. And one of the things that I have to objectively mention is that about 60 to 65% of the characters that you meet or see on screen are either homosexual or bisexual. Most of the homosexual characters or the bisexual characters in this show were hypersexualized. But I will touch base on this concept again in character development. So family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. The acting in this series was amazing. The casting of Tom Sturridge as Lord Morpheus, aka Dream, was an amazing decision, and he absolutely nails it. He is like the love child of Edward Cullen and Mr. Darcy, and his voice is absolutely dreamy. His performance absolutely carried this TV show. I like Jenna Coleman as Johanna Constantine, although they refer to her as Constantine. Don't ask me why they did that. I think it was a terrible decision. And while I liked their acting performances the most, everyone did a really good job, and it made it that much more easy to immerse yourself in this universe. The script for this series I thought was really good for the most part. What are you doing? What do you want to do here? Are you going to face this way? I will say that there were moments from time to time where the script could have benefited the plot a bit more. Like parts of the world would be destroyed or parts of humanity would be affected in drastic ways, and I think that the script could have done a better job. It seemed like something drastic happened and then it wouldn't be referenced later and you wouldn't know what the status of that incident was. But I really liked most of the interactions between characters, which is just another nice thing that this TV show had to offer. So for me, acting and script get a thumbs up. 4 is character development. While the plot of this show is a bit scattered, you do get to understand and appreciate the character of Dream and his thoughts and feelings and emotions that he wrestles with. What he wants to do, what he's convicted to do, versus what he feels that he has to do because of his duty to uphold the balance of Dream and real world. So I think they did a really good job solidifying him as the main protagonist of this series and fleshing his character out. I also like the character of Johanna Constantine. She was a really interesting character, although she was in way less episodes than I wanted her to be in. The interactions and dynamic that she had with Dream made every scene that they were both in very intriguing, and I hope they do more of that. And I also really liked Boyd Holbrook as one of the main antagonists of this series. They didn't flesh out his character as much as I wanted them to, but the relationship dynamics between him and Dream, again, are very interesting. While the plot was still developing, one of the things that I was a bit disappointed in was the use of Dr. Destiny. In my opinion, I think that had they done this right, he could have been an extremely good antagonist for season 1. but he had an introduction which preceded the worst, most explicit episode that this TV series had to offer, and then he was very quickly phased out of the running as the main antagonist of the show. That left me really disappointed because I think that there was a lot of potential there, especially when you find out what's happening at the end of the series. It doesn't seem as strong as what could have been. I also really liked the brother-sister relationship between Dream and Death, and that whole sequence hit home. But one of the things I mentioned is that 60 to 65% of the characters that you meet are homosexual or bisexual. In some of these situations, these characters had depth, which made their characters interesting, and it was a non-factor. But most of the time when these characters were introduced, their identity was their sexuality. Their sexual preference was who they were as people. There was no character development, and it made it feel like they were just checking a box over and over and over and over and over again. There has to be more to a character than checking a box, otherwise it cheapens the overall value of the character and of the TV show. Which, when 65% of the characters that you meet fall into that category, it affects it quite a bit. So because of all of that, character development for me gets a 50-50. 5 is visuals and CGI. I love the way that this TV show was shot. It is incredibly creative, and the visuals and the CGI were all really well done. Even the moments where it's obvious that they're using CGI were done well enough that it didn't pull you out of the show, and you're still able to really immerse yourself in this universe that the Sandman takes place in. There were a couple cheesy CGI moments when you're in hell, and there are some pretty incredibly disturbing moments that are shown in fairly graphic detail. But objectively, the visuals and CGI of the show are very well done and are one of the things that make it really entertaining to watch. The visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. I was very intrigued by this TV show. Every episode offered a new dynamic that was incredibly unique and kept you engaged and wanting to watch and find out how this world works. But some of the content that you see is very dark, along with a lot of the content being hypersexualized, which was not necessary for the success of the show, which was really unfortunate because every time it seemed like I was really enjoying watching this show, something like that would happen and I'd be like, oh, gosh dang it, the show could be so much better if they did this a different way. So because of content, for me, rewatchability gets a 50-50. With all these areas considered, I have to give The Sandman Season 1 a 7 out of 10. This show had some very graphic, disturbing visuals, it had a lot of hypersexualization that wasn't necessary, and the overall tone of the TV show is pretty dark. But it had fantastic acting performances, some good character development along with great character interactions, and some amazing concepts that all took place in a very creative and incredible world. The Sandman is one of the most interesting TV shows that I have seen in a long time, and I think if they make a couple tweaks here and there, they'll have an absolute home run of a TV show on their hands. I'm not always a fan of the stuff that Netflix dishes out, but I found myself enjoying The Sandman. So if you're looking for a dark but creative and very interesting TV show that incorporates some mystical beings along with characters from the DC universe, I would check out The Sandman Season 1, available on Netflix. The Sandman has been renewed for a Season 2, so I'm excited to see what they come up with. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen The Sandman Season 1, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.